Chasing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
What's up everyone, thanks for clicking on the video and welcome back to Park Pros. Before we get into the video, I wanted to give you all a little update on the channel. As a new channel, the focus for Park Pros is going to be on putting out high quality, original coaster and theme park content on a consistent basis. With that being said, I want to announce that Park Pros will be doing weekly uploads on Wednesday nights. Some weeks might also have a bonus video or two, just depending on any breaking news in the industry or if our schedule allows it. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell on so you're not missing anything new on the channel. But yeah, from now on, Park Pros will have weekly uploads on Wednesday nights. With that being said, today I wanted to give you guys a review of my trip to Six Flags Magic Mountain. My trip to Southern California the first week of 2020 wasn't actually for theme parks. I flew into Orange County on New Year's Day to see Wisconsin play in the Rose Bowl. While my Badgers didn't get the result I had hoped for, getting to see your team play at the most beautiful sporting venue in the country is an absolute must if you're a college football fan. After staying the night in LA, we headed out to Valencia to get to Magic Mountain at park opening. This was my fourth or fifth trip to Magic Mountain, and the first time I had been since 2016. Since I had been to the park many times before, and I only had one day, I had a short laundry list of a few coasters I really wanted to get on. Twisted Colossus, X2, Tatsu, West Coast Racers, and Full Throttle. We took the long walk in from the parking lot and waited in a pretty obnoxious security line. This took about 15 minutes alone and was a pretty frustrating way to start the day. You'd hope a park of this size would have this figured out by now, but Six Flags. Once we were in the park, we headed right for Twisted Colossus, one of the two attainable credits I was missing along with West Coast Racers. I rode the original Colossus close to a decade ago, but had yet to get on the new RMC as it was closed all day the last time I was at the park. After a 10-minute wait, I got a front row ride that unfortunately did not have dueling. My initial reaction to the ride was a little conflicted. I knew it was definitely a top 5 RMC for me, just because its layouts and elements were so spectacular. But it was still early in the morning, so the ride wasn't running at a very fast pace. Later in the day, I would go on to get a night ride in the back row that also included a duel, and that was a much better ride. I'll have my complete thoughts on Twisted Colossus in a later video, but I'm definitely a big fan of this ride, and I place it in the upper echelon of the RMCs I've been on. I'm happy it could be my first credit of 2020. A big shout out goes to Chris from Airtime Thrills for some of this off-ride footage, as this coaster is super difficult to film from inside the park. Go check out Airtime Thrills once you're done here, they have amazing content. After my Twisted Colossus ride, I walked on to Lex Luthor Drop of Doom. This was my first time riding one of these Intamin mega drop towers, and I've gotta say, it was a lot of fun. The view at the top is spectacular, and it feels like you're falling forever on this ride. I took a ride on their new for 2018 Zamperla Giant Discovery, Crazanity, which they market as the world's tallest pendulum ride. I honestly would not be mad if they added one of these to every Six Flags park. They're fun, they're capacity machines, and the general public loves them. Not to mention that they just look amazing. I'm really pulling for the addition of one of these at my home park, Six Flags Great America. After that, we headed into the other back corner of the park to check out the new underground area, and of course, check out the new for 2020 coaster, West Coast Racers. I gave my full review on West Coast Racers in last week's video, so hit the banner above or check out the link in the description for my full thoughts on this brand new coaster. At this point of the day, the park started to get a little busy, as we waited about 45 minutes for West Coast Racers, and then had another 45-minute wait to ride Apocalypse. I rode this GCI Woody back in its opening year when it was still named Terminator, and I've gotta say, it's running as well now as it did back then. The retracking they did this past year, when the ride was closed during West Coast Racers construction, has really done wonders for the ride. It's aggressive as hell and tears through its course. After our Apocalypse ride, we headed up the hill to ride my favorite B&M flying coaster, Tatsu. After waiting about an hour, we got to the station when the ride started having some type of technical difficulty with the train's tilting mechanic. After waiting an additional 20 minutes, it didn't seem like any of the employees had any real sense of urgency to get the ride back up, so we bailed. This was my one real bummer of the day, as I hadn't been on this coaster in 5 years, and we didn't have time to ride it again the rest of the day. We then headed down the other side of the hill and decided to get a walk-on ride on Viper. With how frequently these Aero Mega Loopers are hitting the scrap heap these days, riding Viper has almost become a must-do. This ride was always one of the better Aero Loopers in my opinion, and that still holds up. The first drop is awesome and always catches me off guard, and the inversions don't really have any bad headbanging, especially for an Aero its size. There's a lot of smaller scale Aero Loopers that are running much worse than this, but with the way things are going, I don't know if this coaster is going to make it another 5 years. I'm glad I got a ride in though, as it's usually a surprisingly pleasant experience. We then headed across the bridge and braced ourselves for a long line at the infamous X2. To our surprise, X2 was only about a 20-minute wait. I have never seen that line so short, as the quickest wait I've had in the past was 45 minutes, and I've waited up to 2 hours for this thing. X2 is a coaster that people either love or hate, and I'm definitely high on this ride. In fact, this coaster has been in my top 5 ever since I rode it for the first time. To this day, X2 is one of the very few coasters that still genuinely makes me nervous before I ride it. It's pure chaos, and I've never fully come to grips with what actually happens during the course of the ride. I've talked a lot about how I love disorienting and unpredictable coasters, like Time Traveler, but X2 takes that to a whole nother level. I've been on this coaster between 10 and 15 times, and I still don't know what the hell is going on when I ride it. X2's on-ride audio wasn't working during our visit, which was actually kind of scuffed because it does add a lot to the ride, but even without it, it's still such a fun coaster. As soon as we hit the brake run, it was clear to me that this coaster is still king at Magic Mountain. In my opinion, there are very few coaster experiences that are on par with X2, and it's still an elite coaster in my book. After our ride on X2, we hustled over to Full Throttle for a sunset ride. Every time I ride Full Throttle, I'm just so shocked at how much ass it kicks. This is by far the most underrated coaster at the park. The launches are so intense, and you get amazing hang time. And the way you blast out of the tunnel and over the loop is such a rush. Not to mention, you get some gnarly airtime on your way down. If this thing was like 1,500 feet longer, I think it'd be one of the best coasters in the US. After our ride on Full Throttle, we got a really epic back row night ride on Twisted Colossus and then called it a day. After several visits to Magic Mountain, here are some thoughts that I picked up on this trip. Magic Mountain is still a bucket list park for all enthusiasts, no matter hardcore or casual. If all you care about is riding amazing coasters, it should probably be number 2 on the list of parks you need to get to, right behind Cedar Point. Their top 5 coasters are right up there with the best in the country, and they have a lot of depth overall in their lineup. I'm glad they redid the back area of the park, but there's still a lot of sections of this park that could use a refurb, especially the Oriental section at the top of the hill. It just feels run down and forgotten about. However, I think the park knows this, and I expect their next big project to be doing something with that area. I think the park has done a really nice job in the last decade building up depth in years where they don't get new coasters. I remember a time not too long ago where it seemed like there was very little to do at this park unless you were a major thrill seeker or a little kid. Their addition of rides like Justice League, Lex Luthor, and Crazanity has really diversified their ride lineup beyond just coasters. Beyond that, their focus on mid-level thrill rides, like adding West Coast Racers and refurbing Revolution, have also helped to make them a more well-rounded park. If you asked me 10 years ago which of the Six Flags parks had the most to offer for everyone, Magic Mountain wouldn't even be near the top of my list. But now, I think it's right up there. Magic Mountain is for sure an upper tier park overall in this chain, just based on the rides it has to offer alone. It's right up there with Great America, Over Georgia, and Fiesta Texas in terms of overall rankings in the chain. If you asked me today what my favorite Six Flags park is, I'd have to go with Magic Mountain. Their collection of coasters is just unmatched in the Six Flags chain, and having a handful of elite coasters is a great way to get a boost in my park power rankings. But yeah, those are my thoughts on my most recent trip to Six Flags Magic Mountain. Be sure to leave a like on the video and hit that subscribe button in the bottom right. Thanks again for checking out the video, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.